Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Outwatch, a Survivor Rewatch podcast. We are episode by episode going through Survivor Season 7, Survivor Pearl Islands, a wonderful piece of television achievement. And we are almost done with this season of Survivor, our first foray into the Rewatch Survivor game. My name is Alex, and I will be guiding our experience through episode 13 of Survivor Pearl Islands, titled Mutiny, and I am joined by three of my friends, and we are live today in the same room.
We're live today.
We are normally dead.
We're recording this every single day that anyone is listening to this. We're just constantly redoing the episode, so that way it's live.
Immediately.
Yes.
Live by, I mean, we're here together in the same room.
Yes.
We're on location.
On location.
We can see each other with our eyes being alive together.
Yeah.
It's a new experience.
No one knows what everyone does when they're podcasting. I'm usually naked, so...
Well, that makes two of us. Now that you've been introduced to us collectively, let's introduce you to each individual. And we always like to start off with a fun Survivor-y question. Today, one of the big points of this episode is the GMC Envoy, a wonderful, wonderful vehicle.
Great car.
So we're going to go around and share our favorite things about the GMC Envoy. Adam, welcome to Outwatch. Why don't you go first?
Thanks, Alex. My favorite thing about the 2003...
Yes, it's from 2000.
2003 GMC Envoy is the tent that you can buy that comes out the back.
Uh-huh.
See, I anticipate finding myself homeless at some point in my life. And you know what? If I do, I'm just going to go out to my car, pitch a tent real quick. We're good to go.
Insurance.
Hey, Adam, give me just a couple seconds here. Cool. Can you say the phrase "pitch a tent" one more time?
I'm just gonna go out to my car and pitch a tent real quick.
In a sexual way.
That was really good, actually. That was clever.
Thank you. Emily, welcome to Outwatch. What's your favorite thing about the 2003 GMC Envoy?
Yes, I'd have to say that rounded back of that SUV-esque vehicle, was super hot in 2003, but today might scream just outdated. Just that I have a lot of children that I, the general like soccer mom minivan style that used to be maybe presumably cool.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. I really love it.
Can you go ahead and say the phrase "I like that rounded back" one more time?
Yes, I like that rounded back.
In a sexual way.
All right, that's a really good theme we've got going.
2 for 2. Hey, Scott, welcome to Outwatch. What's your
Hi.
favorite thing about the 2003 GMC Envoy?
So, with any vehicle, you want to really focus in on the performance factor of it. So, it's an SUV. I'm assuming there's four-wheel drive involved. Maybe lacking in gas mileage, but made up for in the fact
Especially in 2003.
Yes.
It's a real problem.
But you could totally carry many people. That third row seating, totally a game changer in 2003.
Yeah.
Like if you are going to be spending the night in an Aztec ruin, then it's great to have that GMC Envoy. You just pull that tent out. You can bring all your friends in that third row. 4-wheel drive through some rugged terrain
Over
in the
some
Panamanian
Aztec
jungles.
graves
Over
and stuff.
the Aztec graves.
Yes.
Over the Aztec grids, yeah.
Yes.
The nice thing about having that many people in your car, though, means that the gas mileage isn't really that big of a deal because you're splitting it 7 ways.
Hey, there you go.
This is true.
Just saying, it's a
Carpooling.
feature.
Indeed it is. Well, hey, before we dig into this episode and go deep, we are going to run through the plot points of this episode and remind everybody what happened in episode 13 of Pearl Islands. We start after Sandra's ally Krista had just been blindsided. She's back at camp, feeling devilish, hatching a plan to hide all of the stuff, assuming that it's going to be her next. And meanwhile, Lil starts to have doubts about her place with Burton and John. At the reward challenge, we've got a replay of some old challenges for food and the chance to see the ruins. Bert wins this, takes John, and gets the GMC Envoy in the process. And regardless of how he finishes this game, he really came out on top as a proud owner of a GMC Envoy.
I mean, that car is probably still trucking, I'm just saying.
You're probably right.
They don't make them like they used to, Adam.
Yeah, is Burton on Twitter? Can we tweet at him real quick? See if
Let's
he has-
find Burton on Twitter. Later back at camp, Lil tells Dara that the others are gunning for her, and the women plan to vote out the guy that loses, whether that's John or Burton. John and Bert have all sorts of casual sexism throughout this episode, underestimating the women.
Sexual.
No, that's not a sexual. I have to be fast here.
I'm ready to cry.
And so John then later promises Sandra final 3. She swears that she'll join him. And we go to the immunity challenge, which Dara wins once again because she has the smallest hands.
Not in a sexual way.
Not in a sexual way. Lil is really starting to wear down. Her emotional and physical health is really taking a nosedive, and other people start to see her as untrustworthy and unreliable for that reason. And then John comes in at Tribal, really schmoozing these ladies, telling them that they're great, because he needs their vote, at least one of their votes, to get his plan enacted. And then ultimately, Burton goes down, votes 3-2. The 3 women band together against Bert and John, vote out Burton in a big blindside after he has been shitting on those ladies all episode. Mm-hmm. It's great poetic justice. Mm-hmm. And Burton becomes the next member of the jury, falling just short of the final episode. And Scott, that means your son, Burton, has been eliminated.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
In this case, you want in any case, you want your son to, outlive you in the Survivor game. In this case, it's sad for this Survivor fantasy parent to have to wish his son goodbye. So that puts it into Team Jameis Winston.
I'm ready to cry.
I wanted to cry. I am crying right now, actually. So.
Scott, you said it. That is your last member of your team. Meaning that after this episode, unfortunately, you cannot score any more points.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
Yeah, I set out to just not get last, and it's looking like I'm going to get last.
It is looking that way.
We could collectively agree to give him D, who
That's true.
has not
he hasn't been
Wow.
picked up
selected.
At all.
Now, last time you did that, you gifted Emily Lil.
Yeah, now I have
She's
2
still
people.
in this game.
Yeah.
I will, if it's okay, I will totally take Dara.
You know what?
Yeah, you should.
I have to change my calculations.
I am okay with it because I have complete confidence in Sandra, my girl. Okay? Because after 3 episodes of getting dicked around, she finally realized voting out Burton or John is a good idea.
Yep.
I would also be willing to give you John because he's dead to me. So
I don't want John. So you can keep him.
okay, great.
If we all are in agreement with gifting Scott the Jameis Winston tribe Dara, then after this episode, we can give her to you for the finale. How about
Yes.
that? We won't calculate her points for this episode, but we can calculate her finale points.
I will change my tribe name to Tribe Queen D.
Queen D.
Nice.
Dang, that's a good try, man.
It's a good tribe.
I'm a little upset about that now.
Disappointing. Well, hey, let's go through and share some of our favorite moments from this episode. Anything that really stuck out to any of you that really warrants a lot of discussion?
I was very surprised. Well, not really, but I was about Sandra when she came back and she was like, she was out for blood. She was like, I'm going to be next, so I'm going to hide the fishing nets, and I'm going to hide the water jug, and I'm going to hide the fishing spear. Like, she was mad.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because she gets fired up, but I honestly thought she was going to go through with it, and I was like, this will be a really interesting episode if she does that, but
Yeah.
that was kind of funny to me.
Yeah, I thought I had forgotten that happened because when
Right,
they set it up, I was
yeah.
like, oh shoot, does she do this? I
Yeah.
forgot that happens.
Of course, I haven't seen it since 2003.
Right.
So it's possible that I would have forgotten, but...
Correct.
I love though when after she joined, after the girls kind of did their thing, she's like, "Oh crap, I was gonna do all that. Now I gotta make sure I don't."
Yeah.
I just, like, it's been episode after episode after episode of watching the girls be like, okay, like, let's take out these 2 power players, and then not doing it. And it's just been so frustrating. that like this moment where the three of them are like so early on, they're like, you know, okay, we're gonna agree. Like, if Burton wins immunity, then John's gone. If Burton doesn't win immunity, then Burton's gone.
Yeah.
And they say it, and I've just been like had my heart broken so many times at that point that I'm like, this isn't gonna happen. Like, John's gonna pull something out of his butt and like make someone agree to go with him. Because he made Sandra swear on her kids.
Yeah.
And then I guess this was the end. Burton's like talking head thing. He said something about to Lily or to Lil. He's like you agreed to go to the final two with me. You agreed not to vote me out. I hope you can live with yourself. It's like, dude, you wrote her name down.
Yeah,
you
he wrote her name down.
You can't high ground someone if you wrote their name down too.
Do you remember the exact quote? I'm trying to find it in my notes. After John asks like Sandra to swear on her kids or whatever, and she says like, I told her. Oh, he's like, she said something like, I said that I promised to go to Final Three with you, but in my head, I was saying I promised to vote you out or something like that.
Yeah, she said to screw you and Burton
And Bert,
over.
yeah.
That's what she
I
was like,
loved that.
It was, yeah.
That was great. Great. Let's kind of go through some of the highlights here then. I made the note early on in this episode. I can't imagine how annoying and frustrating it would be to play with Lil. Especially at this point in the game.
She's just so genuine that I don't think she's Survivor material. No. Like, she can't be a backstabber. Because to her, she has an alliance and she will stay true to it. And it makes her ill if she can't do that.
Just like the way that she talks too. It's like, oh, but I don't want to vote out Sandra. That's wrong. It's like, shut up. Just do it.
Yeah.
Rough stuff.
Rough stuff.
Oh, because the dog.
Yeah.
Good stuff. It's time we introduce the fifth member of the Outwatch crew, Ryder the dog.
Ryder dog is Ryder.
He has a lot of opinions.
Ryder dog.
He's got hot takes.
He watched the episode with me this morning. So. Yeah, you might have to edit that. Edit this out.
No, I can't.
You what?
I can't. It's okay. So at the reward challenge, a few notes I had. There was that digging portion that they had a super hard time on. How was that difficult? You know what I'm talking about? Where they had to they had the two strings and they had to find its intersection and dig there.
Yeah. They had coordinates, right? And they had to put the strings where the coordinates were and then dig for a key.
Why was that hard?
I think I think part of it was it shouldn't have been hard. Like, I will agree with you there, but also we're at day 34.
Right, yeah.
You know, you've eaten barely anything. Like, we see how much skinnier everyone is.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine that there's a lot of just mental fatigue at this moment. That's what a lot of that was. It also, I don't know, it seemed like Burns was buried so deep. Like, because he eventually found his, in that spot, but it also, I don't know, it was...
I saw Lil, and I was like, Boy Scout, she's got this. Like, she knows coordinates. She can do this. And she had the hardest time.
Yeah.
She had a real hard time.
It was painful to watch her. She was, talking to herself. She's like, okay, Lil, think about this. Let's start over.
Wasn't Jeff at one point Lil, it's probably best just start over.
Yeah, he was over it.
Yeah. There was also a lot of good Survivor phallus humor talking about the polls in that challenge.
What?
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. It's a thing in Survivor where there's lots of poles and rods and balls. Challenges. And Jeff refers to these things a lot.
I guess, I just went over my head.
You ruined it for me now.
Yep, now you're going to notice it everywhere.
Right.
So Bert wins reward, takes John. What do you guys think about the move strategically to take John on this reward with him?
Completely egotistic. Just so confident.
Yeah.
I thought that was so dumb. And it bit them in the butt.
It really did.
Yeah, it gave the girls a chance to completely come up with a plan, and then if one of them had been there, so they couldn't have done it. It would have at least made it harder for them to do that.
Yeah.
And it was infuriating to listen to them and their casual sexist comments being like, this isn't a big deal. We'll just get one of them on board with us. Everything's fine. And we got to eat a bunch of dinner.
Yeah.
It's
they don't have a half a brain between the three of them.
That was
Something like
I know.
that. It was stuff like that where it's like, dude,
it was beyond game strategy talk. It was these women don't have a brain
Yeah,
between them.
I could
Yeah.
not believe that.
it's
It was
rough.
bad.
Yeah, this episode didn't age well.
No.
From 2003.
No.
Much like the GMC Envoy.
Unlike the GMC Envoy, which ages like a fine wine. It's probably still kicking. Speaking of the GMC Envoy, to finish up that last point, I think that it would have been slam dunk the right call for Burton to take Lil, because she was kind of like on the fringe of their three. She was having her doubts. You take her on this reward. You assure her, hey, we're still final two. It's still me and you. We're good. You don't allow the three of them to get their stuff figured out. And maybe you solidify that thing. But in the meantime, Lil is now completely with those other girls.
Yeah.
I actually would argue that the better move would be to take Sandra.
Really?
And here's why, because
Okay.
it's Burton who hasn't really strategized with Sandra beyond the fact that
Right.
Burton is the one who took out Sandra's biggest ally.
Yep.
Sandra's in the weakest position because she has an alliance with literally no one on this tribe now.
Mm-hmm.
She can't trust John in any way, shape, or form, so strategizing with John is just a no-go.
Yeah.
But Burton takes Sandra and just looks at her and says, you know what? Like, I've been screwing people left and right with John as the wheelman.
Yeah.
You and I can take this to the final two. We can cut out John.
That would be an interesting
Okay?
move.
So even if you don't make that move, like,
Yeah.
you win her over right there.
Yeah.
Because she's like, well, I have no other choice. Like,
Right.
I can't strategize with anyone else. Like, no one is coming with me.
Right.
I've tried this for 3 episodes now to get rid of either of you, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly think
That's an interesting take.
I honestly think the best choice is Sandra.
Yeah.
Like,
You then remove her from that position of influence back at camp too.
exactly.
Because she was really the spearhead getting Lil and Dara on
Yep,
board.
yep. And then you just have John, Lil, and Dee at camp, and you know, John just does his thing.
Right.
So I think that the
That
best
would be
move
that's
is that.
interesting. Yeah. That's a next level way of thinking. So
Smelling of pizza.
we've already talked quite a bit about this car commercial that was embedded in this episode. Anything to add about this fun sidebar here?
The thing that really struck me about this moment was
Yes.
how natural it was. Like, it was, we were at least halfway through it before I was like, oh man, this is a car commercial.
Yeah, I got really confused.
Like, whew. It was
It was
just so naturally started talking about this GMC Envoy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved like the sweeping, aerial shots of like the car driving down the Panamanian highways that just were taken completely from a car commercial. You know,
Right.
like as you hear the guy saying, "For only $19,990, the sport track, blah 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 blah." All it was missing was the voiceover.
My favorite thing is it's the only car in the parking lot, like
Yeah.
of this boat dock.
Right.
Like, is there no one working here? What's
Yeah.
going on?
I just completely forgot that they did this, and so they started it with like, oh, and there was this car in the parking lot. I was like, where's the car gonna take them? Like, where are they gonna go? And then I was like, oh, it's about the car.
It's the
okay,
car, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And Jeff is there with them. He's like, you know, it's the GMC Envoy. What a good car. This is a great car.
He's like, yeah,
He
he,
was so boring about
Yeah.
it.
yeah, he like explained like small components about the car where he's like, and the back opens and you can put a tent up here.
You like camping, Burton?
You like
camping?
You like
Yeah.
There's a tent.
So
ultimate
just
camping
so
car.
it's just so natural.
I
Like,
feel
it
like-
felt so.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely helped Burton on his talking points because when they
Yes.
did his interviews,
100%.
he was like, I love to camp and hike, and I also like snowshoeing, and this car will take me across all of the terrains. I love the GMC Envoy. I was like, oh yeah, I believe you.
I have always wanted GMC Envoy. Give me car. I love car.
Car is life. Car is love.
I don't know, guys. I was ready to go buy one after. So
But I need the 2003.
How much does the 2003 GMC Envoy run these days?
about $2,000. I have no
Probably
idea.
That holds up pretty well after 15 years. $2,000 for
It's not bad. Not bad. There is a great sequence as far as the editing goes during this like reward where well, it's actually when they get back. There's like a combo of conversations here where like Burton and Lil are on one side of the island like talking and strategizing and trying to reel stuff in, and then on the other side there's John and Sandra who are talking, and you've kind of got this cut back and forth between the two of them. It was a really compelling sequence and a unique kind of edit that they didn't do a whole lot of this season.
Yeah.
Just wanted to draw some attention to that. Also, we talked about the like lays in Jeff's voice a little bit already, but he feel like, especially at the immunity challenge, it seems like he's bored or like tired.
Yeah.
He really did.
Yeah.
Dara, going for another plank. All right, that plank's down. Reaching her hand in the tube. She's got another buoy. It's it's a far cry from current Jeff, where it's like, Dara puts her hand in the tube.
Because you
Gotta pick it up, Dara.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryder, I didn't mean to yell so loud.
Yeah, so we have a doggo who's very excited about Survivor.
Yes.
Yeah, I always know that and you've talked about how he's super excited in more recent seasons, but he always seems so even keel. But at this point, it's just kind of like he's just over it.
Yeah, I think
you can just hear it in his
that's what I
voice.
feel from him too.
Yeah.
He's like, it's day 34.
Right.
I'm
Sick of these
tired. Lil sucks. Why is she on this show?
Lil sucks. Why is she on this show?
I think also this was a really good episode for Sandra across the board. One of the things when Bert like accused her of like creating a women's alliance or whatever, I think she played off that accusation really well, where she was like, no, I'm not, I know it's me, whatever. She handled it really well. And I thought it was worth mentioning that too.
Yeah, because when they came back to camp and she was like laying down and she was saying, basically, there's nothing left for me here and I'm really distracted. How much is the GMC Envoy?
Sorry. I made a motion because it was funny to me. I spec'd it out with 151,500 miles, which is completely unreasonable for a car that's 15 years old.
Right.
That's 10,000 miles.
Unless it's just lived in a garage.
The good, which is the second lowest, I feel 54% of cars fall in that range.
Okay.
Trade-in range is $823 to $1,448. So you could sell this car for probably about $1,000, like reasonably.
Yeah.
Which, hey, if you drove this thing for 15 years, you probably got a pretty good deal out of this car.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it was new, but like,
That's quite a life
like,
for a GMC Envoy.
Yeah. So anyway, about Sandra.
Yes,
sorry.
Yeah, she was pretending to be mopey and just saying that she was done with the game. And they came back and they cut to the guys talking and they were like, oh, they're putting on such an act. But then they just completely fell for it.
Yeah, they did.
The women just kept talking and they pulled it off. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah. There's a confessional that Bert has too that really like sums up Sandra's strategy really well, which is this like anybody but me thing where she's willing to align with whoever and to vote for whoever as long as it keeps her moving one step along, which is, inherently a flawed strategy, but useful to a degree, right? That at some point you have to, make certain moves or get to the end with certain people. It's not enough just to continually survive, but to do it in a way that sets you up to win. But he does a good job of, really succinctly describing the way that she plays,
Yeah.
well, and I feel like it's something that came out of like her alliance fell apart. So like when you're not in a position of power and you can't seem to convince anyone to put you in a position of power. Yeah. Because I realized, especially during this episode, from an economic perspective, like what is important in this game is knowledge. If you can't prove that anyone is doing something wrong or anti to what you're doing, you can't react to it. So like John and Burton come back and they're like, okay, what did you guys talk about?
Yeah.
And no one budges. And so there's nothing they can do. Yeah. Like they can try and be like, you should just vote with us, like guarantee or whatever. And it's like, but if no one budges on that, then they have all the knowledge. They know like we have you. Yeah. So there's nothing you can say to me that's gonna, make me switch. Yeah. So after you lose power, after you lose that, it's all about knowledge and what you can do with it. So
yeah, that's a great assessment because it determines how you vote and like how later in seasons, like the knowledge of who has idols and advantages that determines, strategy in that sense. And yeah, like when you see it all the time, as soon as someone finds out from someone else, this person's gunning for me, their immediate response is always, okay, well, we have to get them out now, right? Yeah. And you're the currency of knowing that that other person's going for you, which is obtained by having good relationships so that you get that knowledge, Yeah, that's a good assessment. We have not talked about Dara at all, which is, I'm blown away every time I watch an episode. How invisible she is, that we're at the final 5.
I think it's...
She has won more immunities than anyone, and we know nothing about her. Her confessionals have to be so bad.
She's 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until she won the last one. Like, oh, she's won 3 in a row.
She's won 3 immunities in a row.
Yeah, they walked up to the immunity challenge. I was like, oh yeah, Dara won the last one. Like,
her confessionals have to be seriously just incredible. She has to be so boring.
Which just like it's amazing, really, that she's made it this far into the game, and it has to be because people are like, well, she's not a threat.
Yeah.
So we're not worried about it.
Right, and you don't hear other people talking about her even. It's not even that, like, you don't even hear her. You don't hear other people talking about her either.
Right.
She's just there.
Just under the radar. That's obviously working well for her, though.
It's getting her this far, that's for sure.
Hashtag Team Queen D.
There is your champion, Scott.
Yes.
Scott's champion.
At Tribal 2, I figured out when they brought the jury in why they casted Krista, because I could not figure it out until now. She is Phoebe from Friends. Her personality, the way she looks. I'm sure Friends was still a thing in 2003.
Yeah, 2003 would have been like the last season.
Yep. They casted Friends Phoebe.
That's what they did.
Because like she was not super interesting or whatever. I just looked at her and I'm like, oh, Phoebe.
All makes sense now. There it is.
It all makes sense now. I love that the 2 that they showed were Burton and John, and they were like, "Here, we'll show you these 2 guys." Like I didn't need to see them.
Yep.
Yeah, and then they stack because they have to stack the way that like Jeff reads the votes.
Yep.
So they stacked it, so it's like Lil,
so it's
Lil, and then it's Burton, and then so they like force it so that way it's so that way John and Burton are like, yeah, got it, and then it's like, oh wait, no.
Yep.
They were, you could tell they were blindsided too.
Yeah.
They were like,
For sure.
Oh no.
They had no idea.
Yeah.
It was very satisfying to watch.
Yes, it was.
It was
for me.
And they could have done this 3 episodes ago.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's a long overdue. Any other stuff from Tribal or from this episode that we didn't touch on that you think we ought to?
I would just briefly say that I don't think I was a fan of the immunity challenge.
Yeah, it sucked.
Like it.
Remind me. Oh, it was
The lowering the drawbridge.
planks and the
you
shove
had
your
to
hands.
get a key out of a tube and then
And that was the thing,
unlock
like
your
it
planks
so
to lock you in.
favored D.
Yeah.
Because she could just reach her hand in there and pull it out.
It truly was because she had the smallest hands.
Right. And so it was like I feel like that's okay in a reward challenge, but like this was just like it wasn't like because she's stronger because it was just like you're just smaller.
I think there's stuff, like, we've seen a number of examples of this season, where there's, like, little details like that the producers miss or don't think about that kind of, like, makes it gimmicky,
Yeah.
And, like, in such a way that would not happen now. Yeah. But it's almost like, oh, shoot, we didn't think, like, what if someone has smaller hands and they could just shove their hand all the way down this tube instead of actually having to fill it up,
Well, and in the reward challenge, actually, like, Lil slipped her hand out of the knot before she untied it.
I saw that too.
And I was like, was that like, is like, obviously it was okay because they didn't like restart it or anything.
Right.
But that was like, is that
definitely not designed?
Is that in the spirit of the game? Is that like okay if you can slip your hands out? But like,
yeah.
And
in general, I feel like as the game goes on, like I don't know, I could be completely wrong. I feel like the challenges should like get bigger as the game goes on. Like, okay, you guys are obviously the best at Survivor. Let's challenge you more and more. I feel like this was kind of anticlimactic. Like, okay, you fill up some water, buoyancy, physics happens. You stick
Yeah.
your hand in. Okay, now you just kind of lower a drawbridge and balance and move on. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing like that intense about it. I feel like they should have switched the challenges, in fact.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
But that's just my opinion on it.
I also love when, this is mostly completely unrelated, but I love when you can like catch, like early on in Survivor, I feel like you can catch moments where they were like, well, we need to frame that up better, so let's redo it. So when
The key.
the key
Yes.
was one,
Yes.
And then when Burton won the reward challenge,
Yeah.
and they were like, what's the phrase, Jolly Roger? It's like Burton wrote that out. End to end. He didn't add 2 lines to it.
Yeah.
And so it was like, you just like see it. It was like, yeah, that's just not.
Yeah.
Like that was obviously redone
Yep.
for, you
Yep.
know.
What
They
was
picked up the shot.
What was the key? I don't think I
It was in the reward challenge
Yeah,
too. When
it
they
was-
had to, like, when he stuck the key in the lock, it was just like some random, like they got a super tight shot of someone putting a key in. The
I think
lock.
it was. I think it was
okay.
even like a reshot from the like showing what you do. You know how they do that?
Yeah.
Because they did that during the boat challenge too this season.
Yep.
Where
Yep.
it was like
I
a lot
noticed
of.
that. I do remember noticing like
Yeah.
that a couple different times. Like,
Yeah, and it's just
It's
like it
too
feels
clean.
so apparent in like
Yeah.
these where it's like that
too
wasn't.
clean. Too
That's
clean.
not Burton.
Yeah, they were.
I
way lower
recognize
budget.
that arm hair.
We've talked before about the idea of emergent strategy, which isn't unique to Survivor. It's in like games in general. When you come up with a strategy for a game that wasn't intended or like thought of when the game was designed, that like almost breaks the game, but in a way that is within the rules and like, oh wow, that's really smart. There's a difference between emergent strategy and like oversight by the designers of the
Yeah.
challenge, right? The example I always use for emergent strategy is there's this challenge that was kind of recurring, and then they started doing this and they stopped using the challenge because they broke it, where it was a one-on-one and each person had like an idol on like a little perch and like on their hand, and the goal was to knock the other person's idol off onto the ground, and whoever's was still on, or whoever's hit the ground last won. So what someone did at some point was they would get close, and then they would fling their idol up in the air as high as they could and just sell out and knock the other person's onto the ground while theirs stayed in the air until it hit the ground. And it was like, yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah.
You can't beat that unless you, as soon as you see that person fling it, throw yours in the air even higher, and now it's boring.
Right.
Because you're just waiting for him to hit the ground. you know?
Right.
So it's like, yeah, that was within the rules, really smart strategy, and you broke the game.
Yeah.
This is like, we just didn't think that if someone has small hands, they would win.
Right.
Well,
and as a guy like
Uh-huh.
who very like there are moments where like women feel like this is a scary situation for me or things like that, where it's like I don't think that it's a scary situation, so I don't think about it.
Sure.
I feel like that has to happen when you're designing games, where it's like, well, yeah, like most people's hands are generally this big, or like whatever. But my favorite example of that is in Settlers of Catan, the Monopoly card, because it's designed to be a Monopoly buster is the whole point of the card, where it's like someone is hoarding resources and we need these resources to be back in the game, or at least in my hands, so you play them. And what has happened is there's a strategy where you basically trade out a resource that you have a lot of, and then you play that card and you get that resource all back right there. So you've essentially just stolen a bunch of random resources from people and taken the resources that you traded back.
Yeah.
And that was like, it was never designed to act that way.
Right.
But it's a perfectly legit strategy that
It's
will
just kinda
infuriate everyone you're playing.
right.
I almost flipped the board the first time I saw
It
that.
sounds like you're talking from
I was
experience.
so upset.
It totally infuriates everyone.
Maybe the worst experience I've ever had playing a board game was playing Catan with you, Ben and Amy. Anyway, hey, let's get into our Outwatch Survivor fantasy pool. Scott, please don't look at the screen because I'm about to pull up spoilery stats.
Ooh.
Oh, man.
Because I calculated for the finale so I wouldn't have to do it on the fly.
Oh, man. Well, now you gotta calculate on the fly for D.
I know. All right, so episode 13, here we are. In this episode, just a quick reminder of who's on whose tribe. Emily's Lil John tribe consists of Lil and John. We forget this every time. I know. It's really a master stroke. The Lancaster tribe, or did you rename your tribe too?
I feel like I did, but I wrote it on my computer. We're not in
forget
front of
to.
it, so I don't remember.
In any case, you've still got Sandra alone.
Something with Sandra? Name it something about Sandra.
I don't know.
I don't remember
I
either.
don't remember. Anyway. I have how much, though?
Well, we'll get to the scores.
Oh, we're not doing
Yep.
scores. Gotcha.
In Scott, the Jameis Winston tribe consists of Burton for this episode only until he is no longer in the game. For the scores, the Lil John tribe accrued a half a point from John for surviving, and a full point from Lil for voting correctly and surviving. The Lancaster tribe got a full point from Sandra for voting correctly and surviving. And Scott, though Burton did fall in this episode, you did get a point from him for winning the individual reward challenge. Dee, of course, won the individual immunity challenge, and no one got points for her doing so.
Gosh, we
Because
dropped
she's
3
on.
points because no one picked her up.
Well, it's two. It's two per episode.
oh, it's
so
2
a total
per
of
episode.
6.
We've lost 6 points.
Someone would have at least 6 more points, and then many more for just surviving as much as she did.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, someone's really missing out on some points.
But come on, when we drafted...
Well, they never showed her.
She's
How would we know?
purple-headed.
It's fair.
Through
A
episode
completely
13.
fair
We can't-
reason to not draft her. So a score update at this point. In second place, we've got a tie between the Lancaster and Jameis Winston tribe with 29 points apiece. And sliding into the lead is Tribe Lil John with 29 and a half.
Yes, Lil John.
For
Even-
the first time?
For the first time in this
This is
game.
the most important time.
A full 7 points down in episode 9.
Yeah,
Now finally surpassing and taking the lead.
absolutely.
As discussed, we will gift Scott's Jameis Winston tribe 1 Dara.
You get 1 Dara.
Wanda.
And we'll see how that affects things going forward. So you do still have the chance to score, making the finale more compelling in the fantasy world.
They should say I have a chance to win.
You do have a chance to win if
Yeah,
Dara
I
goes
mean,
to
we're
random
only...
wins.
It's 29, 29 and a half, right?
It is.
So,
Everybody is in it.
I mean, yeah. Emily has a distinct advantage.
She does have
because
2 players.
Of Lil and John.
Lil
Correct.
John.
That's correct. Going in... we'll wrap up this way. Going into the finale, which will be our next episode, and we will record live as we watch, who do you think of our final 4, being Lil, John, Sandra, and Dara, will win Survivor?
Sandra.
We got 1 vote for Sandra.
I actually was going to say Sandra too, just because obviously I love Lil John, but I don't think either part of Lil John is winner material.
Yeah.
I feel like D's got a shot, guys. Like,
Really? Okay.
No, because oh man, it all depends on who she goes up against. I feel like Lil wins if she makes it to the final. I feel like Sandra doesn't really have that much of a shot. She was just riding coattails the whole time. John has he can't convince anyone to
No.
vote for him.
John
There's
doesn't
no way.
win. There's no way.
You know what?
He's played such a good strategic game, though.
I know, but the thing
If
is,
the jury
it's-
can look objectively,
it's
But he's such
Seven.
an asshole. There's no way.
yeah, it's season 7. We're too early in Survivor.
Yeah, we'll have
it's
to
not,
see.
It's not mature enough to. So I will lock in Lil.
Lil? Okay. All right.
Come back from the dead and win Survivor. I think
Hot
Lil
take.
wins Survivor.
All right. Well, we'll have to see next time on Outwatch, where right here live we will watch the finale episode, react in the moment to what's happening, crown our Outwatch fantasy champion. Did we decide what the winner gets?
No, but we should.
No.
Let's decide that before we record the next episode, and
Okay.
then we'll
Yeah.
unveil that.
And to
too.
be clear, just so everyone knows, going into the next episode, we'll reiterate again before we do it. Like, we're watching the episode.
Yep.
In commercial breaks, we'll be recording.
Yeah.
So it might be a little bit choppier. But
Yep. You'll get our live emotional reactions to things, though.
Yes.
Also, Ryder might be involved.
Love Ryder.
We will see.
Awesome.
I think Ryder wins Survivor. I do. I think
Yeah.
Ryder won that one. Okay.
Great. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.